If you see a confident person, it would be easy to assume that they're like that all the time. Maybe this confident person that you've seen has fetal position Netflix couch days too.
Hello.
Hello.
I think sometimes I like mimic your like high pitched voice that you put on when you're like real sweet to your
Yeah.
it's the voice you talk to your girls with.
Uh-huh.
And so sometimes when we're saying hi or goodbye, I think
Hi.
I do it too. I'm like, hi. And we do it at the end too. We're like, okay, I love you. Bye bye.
Our voices do go, and then we're like talking really serious about serious shit, and then our voices
And
go,
then-
I love you so much.
I'm like, okay, bye bye. I love you.
I love you. It's just how it is.
I'm sure it's so obnoxious for people listening. And then they turn into mice and say goodbye. Anyway,
No,
that's who we
listen,
are.
They're talking to their dogs like this and their cats like this. Yeah.
That's
Everybody
true.
does
That's
it.
true. Everybody has that high pitched voice you put on to like squish things. It's like a audio squish.
Like
That's how you
like cute
like a
aggression.
hug. Yes.
Yeah.
Anyway, what are we talking about today, dear Emily?
We had a few people ask us to talk about certain topics, and one person asked us to talk about confidence and how to have confidence or what we think about confidence, and then also correlating that into maybe like the how that connects to the idea of not taking things personally, being like really grounded in yourself and not, I think,
Okay.
destabilized by certain things, which I do think is directly kind of like connected to a certain level of confidence in yourself and a groundedness in yourself. So that was the kind of the
This is
question. Yeah.
That's actually a question. The confidence one is a question we've got quite a few times because it's
Hmm.
one that I remember seeing like in the Master Your Mindset group and stuff, especially a few times where I was like, I don't know. It's a topic that even when you suggested it, my internal reaction is like, the fuck? I don't know what to say about confidence. But the thing is once we get started, I always do. But I just think it's one of those things that's I don't know. People have always told me that I come across as confident, and I don't think that I would consider myself a very confident person. Now, yes, but 90% of my life, no.
Hmm.
um Even when like I was younger, people would say I come across as confident or even like intimidating, and I'm always just like, what? Why? How?
Mm.
If you only knew what was going on internally, you would be like,
Oh, never
oh,
mind.
she's just a mess. She's just a mess.
Yeah. See, I have a very similar relationship with confidence, like very similar. Like
Mhm.
I would have people say that I come across really sure of myself, really confident, and I
Mm.
meanwhile was like having a panic attack because I had so much social anxiety. And so
Right.
yeah, I had a completely different relationship with it, and I was like, these people are seeing something that I'm not feeling necessarily. So that's like,
Totally.
what is that?
I
It's
don't
like a
know.
judgment based on like, is it an appearance thing? Is it like a, I don't know.
I think to some extent I think one of my okay, so I think that I have seen in my family a big struggle with social anxiety, and I recognize it within myself. Like I have full on days still to this day. It's funny, it like just not that long ago happened, and Ben even was like, "Wow, it's always surprising to me when you have days like this," where I just was like, I don't really know that I can like human today. Like being out and about and in like public situations or just like I don't know. It's okay, here's what it feels like for me. For me, it feels like going into a situation, especially if I have to talk to people that I'm not like profoundly comfortable with, like my comfort levels are like top notch. Like childhood friends, you,
Mm-hmm.
him.
Mm-hmm.
Um it feels like really scary and overwhelming and like a big effort, and like I don't have the energy to kind of like put myself in that situation, and then it like kicks up insecurities and self-doubt, and so I have moments like that where what I really want to do is just be like alone and at home and like in a little ball watching like Netflix. And
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
recognize that in me and I see it in my family. And
Hmm.
so I think throughout my life I've just kind of decided that to not, cuz I feel how that feeling can kind of like gather momentum, and like if I let it like run away from me, or like it becomes the thing that I operate from within for more than like a day or two, I end
Mm.
up wanting to stay there longer. And
Mm-hmm.
so I've I've actually never put any of this in like words like this before. Um and so as like I really, even like in high school and stuff, I've made like conscious choices to put myself in social situations so that I don't let that thing grow and build momentum, and because I feel like I can see how quickly it's going to be even harder to pull myself out of, if that
Yeah.
makes sense. And
Yeah.
so I think
It really
really
does.
what people pick up on is like something I've practiced, which is kind of just doing the thing, even though I'm cringing inside. And I will say that the thing is like now social situations for the most part come relatively easy. But when I was younger, they didn't. And definitely, um, I have moments now where it's like, it like kicks up and it's like, oh, social anxiety is here for
Yeah.
today. And I'm not doing anything and I'm canceling my plans. And
Mm-hmm.
so I think for me, anyway, I think that people, what they pick up on is like a practice actually, but a
Yeah.
practice that has become real. Like it's not like I'm pretending when I'm out. It's just like, I don't know, I have to be in the headspace for it, really. And so that's when you see me. Like you don't see me when I'm in fetal position on the couch and just like, I don't want to talk to
Mm.
anyone. Like nobody sees that, right? So
Right. Right.
anyway, that was
That's a good point. Is like our maybe our like perception of confidence. I would say that people maybe like if you see a confident person, it would be easy to assume that they're like that all the time.
oh
And
yeah.
right? And maybe the truth is that the even this most confident person that you've seen has fetal position Netflix couch days too, which is probably very likely, you know?
Normal. Yeah.
Yeah, so confidence maybe more maybe it's more of like an energy to enter into or to practice like you were saying, and less of like a
And
personality type or a
yes,
consistent
that's
thing.
and I think that's where I think that's it. Because I think when people say like you are confident, because that's how most people talk, right? We're not like most people aren't going around talking like we talk saying part of me is
I'm
confident.
experiencing confidence right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that that's much more true. Like I have a part of me that is confident, and that part of me like took practice, and that part of me is what most people see when they interact with me, because that's like what I step into when I'm out in the world. Whereas
Mhm.
there's a part of me that's like very much like so insecure and like what the fuck am I doing? And Ben
Yes.
gets to see that side of me because that side of me
Right.
is at home and like drinking tea and like in a fuzzy blanket. Like
Yeah.
it's like Instagram. Instagram is like literally the digital version of like this. Like that's the part we
Mm.
don't like put fetal position us on Instagram. Um
Mm.
and so people think that I don't know, they just take a trait that and they like make it all encompassing.
It's everything. Yeah, and we're
I
so much more nuanced than that. Yeah.
And I'll say that I think that for me, when I was younger, confidence was a practice. Like it really was. Because I remember when I was younger, especially when I went through that whole phase when I was like in middle school, because I went through that. I was in a study for ADHD, where I was put on 40 fucking milligrams of Ritalin every day,
Mm.
which is an obscene amount. It like
I know every
stunted my
time you tell me
growth.
this, I'm like,
And so I'm like
yeah.
in elementary school, it literally stunted my growth. Like I stopped growing. How
Mm.
much like stimulants I was on. And so I had this whole period of time where I remembered what my behavior was like on Ritalin, and I was coming off of it literally cold turkey, like didn't get weaned off of it. And so it was like a huge just like shock to my system, like on a
Oh my
physical
god.
level.
Yeah.
Yeah, like physically, like I went through like actual like drug withdrawal symptoms, which I didn't realize till I was like in my 20s. I was like, oh, I like literally withdrawed from like drugs
Yeah.
with like no
Oh my
understanding of
god.
what was happening.
Just
And
suffering.
just like, well, feeling insane is the scary part. Like you feel
Right.
like you
Right.
feel unhinged. And like when you're like a sixth grader feeling unhinged. Anyway, it just what it did for me though is it gave me two clear like Sarahs. Like I was like Sarah on drugs. Who was like very responsible, confident, calm, outgoing, a good student, a good friend. And then there was Sarah not on drugs, who was like had so much fucking energy, she didn't know what to do with herself. It was like
Mm.
exploding out of me. Sitting in class was like physically painful. It was hard to concentrate. It was hard to get things done. I felt like I couldn't I felt like I even struggled with like friendships briefly, like during that period of time, because I was
Mm.
just like it was like
Mhm.
impulsivity was just a huge part. Anyway, I remember like having this whole period of time where I realized that personality was something that was much more under our control than I really like realized because of this shift.
Hmm.
And it
Okay.
really gave me like a profound belief that I could control so much. I could strive to become and have different character traits that I like really wanted to embody. And
Mm.
I really think that this was like one of the most important things that happened in my life. And I've never
Wow.
resented this period, but I did think it was kind of weird and fucked up and an odd part of my story. But I actually think it gave me a really big gift of believing and knowing that
Hmm.
like you can cultivate parts of your personality, because I like made a choice. Like I liked being good in school. I liked like having and keeping friends. I liked I don't know, I always liked school. Um, Even though I
Mm.
didn't get the best grades really. But anyway, that's all to say that I feel like in that moment I also realized that I also really realized that people are really just trying to figure it out and all struggling with different parts of their personality and wanting to like show up in the world like certain ways. I mean, it was kind of a mind fuck for a middle schooler to like realize all these things, I
Yeah.
think. Cause I think it was like
Yeah.
beyond what most people were thinking about. Because I was literally trying to manage my own behavior so that I wasn't getting in trouble in class and I wasn't getting in trouble at home. And I just realized that most people were kind of like winging it, and that adults were even like pretending almost, and that if I wanted like that confidence was almost like an illusion, and that if I wanted to
Mm.
be more
Mhm.
confident, I could just kind of like pretend
Just
until
do
it
it.
felt
Yeah.
real. No,
Yeah.
seriously, like this is like middle schooler Sarah's like thought
That's
processes.
wild. Yeah.
It was like, okay, I can just kind of like pretend that I'm confident and a good student, and then like maybe it will come. And then it like kind of did. Anyway.
Right, right. No, this is like
So
blowing my mind. I don't feel like we've ever talked about this, like the result, because I knew that you experienced this, but I don't think I've ever heard from you like the result of that, like, and what you learned, because most sixth graders don't experience like an altered state of like consciousness like you did. Like you experienced a different Sarah on drugs. And
yes.
like, and so you're having this like experience that most people don't have until they're like in college and trying like psychedelics and stuff like that, where you realize, oh, like personality and my perception of reality is a lot more pliable than I thought it was. And you're going
Yeah.
through this like with like puberty and all the stuff that's already happening at that time.
Listen, it really made me feel like so much of life is an illusion and that we have so much more control over it than we believe. Like, and that's
Mm.
the thing is I didn't realize, cuz listen, when you're first of all, we haven't talked about it because I feel like a lot of what's coming out of my mouth is actually something I'm saying for the first time. I'm realizing, like, I like for sure, because it's not
Yeah.
something I've like.
Yeah.
This has been like rolling around in my brain, but I don't think one I realized how profound it was until you started asking me questions about it, because it's just something I accepted. Because what we do, I think, naturally, just as humans, is we live through an experience. And especially as a middle schooler, I wasn't like, is everyone else having the same experience as me right now?
No, you just
No.
normalize it.
I was like, this
Yeah.
is my reality. This is like literally the center of my universe, right? This is my problem that I'm trying to fix. And so I kind of think I like almost took it for granted in a way. Like I just didn't realize what a gift it was. One,
Mhm.
until you started asking me questions. And two, actually, what's really brought this to top of mind is when I'm writing a book right now. And I'm
Mhm.
realizing through writing this book how incredibly um impactful this experience was on my life. So
Wow.
I think it's all of that that I'm just yeah, it was like I don't know. It's fucking crazy is what it is. Like
It's like it is kind of blowing my mind because like I coming from like even thinking about my experience, like nothing even remotely even like close to that. It was always just like this static kind of version of myself. And actually and my experience is like on this other side or other spectrum because I had my sisters, my older sister Allison, my younger sister Kayla, who was on a podcast a few back. We're all a year apart and we were homeschooled, and so we were just this like three-headed like being, and we were like parented the same, like taught the same, like every we were just this like unit. We went everywhere together. And so I grew up with like a pretty significant codependence on my sisters and them on us because we did everything together. And I remember like it wasn't until I went to college that was the first time I started doing stuff like on my own. And so I'm like 17, 18, and I'm having to go find my class and sit in a class, and I've never sat in a class
wow.
before,
Oh my
and
gosh.
figure all that out. And so I felt like mine was all you had this like early experience of stuff that typically doesn't happen till much later, and I had a much later, I think, experience of navigating things on my own.
Mhm.
And it was terrifying. It was so terrifying. And I think because I normalized my experience, me and my sisters, we're just always together, and that's just how it is. And
Mhm.
so once I was not with them, I was like, I think I was almost overwhelmed by how exposed I felt because
Mhm.
they were just always there. It was like this like protective like bubble thing. I even
Mm.
remember like because the three of us were together, we even like the boys even kind of like left us alone because they couldn't, like they could like
It's too
try to
much.
talk to
It's like
one
a
of us and like flirt with one of us, but they couldn't get in like all three of us, you know?
mhm.
And I mean, they
Mhm.
tried, but like we were just we were like this unit, this like little protective bubble. And when that wasn't there, I that's when I experienced like this social anxiety and this like really weird version of myself because I think before college, I would have said I was probably pretty confident because I had it was like me and my sisters. We could like set the tone for like wherever we were at, like if we're going to youth group, if we're going to friends' houses. Me and
Mhm.
my sisters are like the three of us, we're like a party, like, you know. And and then when I didn't have them, I I probably had like a pretty it was probably like an entire identity crisis that I was really going through. So, and then that's when I experienced people saying, "Oh, you're so confident, you're so like all this stuff." And I'm like, I'm actually not. I'm actually like
I'm
panicking
actually a
right
hot
now.
mess inside.
Yeah, but I was coming across this certain way, and I actually like my perception of like even relationships and things like that, and people who were I felt kind of lonely because I felt like these
Mhm.
people were like not wanting to be friends with me when in reality I apparently was intimidating
Mm.
and like was aloof, and nobody like could kind of like penetrate that, and I remember when I was like I learned about that upon like exiting college towards the end, and just being like I don't want to come across like that. I don't want to have so either I need to figure out how to be more honest about how I'm
Mm.
feeling, or I need to like step into this confidence that people assume that I have anyways. And I think I've done like
Mhm.
some of both, like both of those things, because I
Ooh,
feel
I
like
like that
I
second one.
came yeah, I came to kind of like a similar conclusion that you did, where I was like, if people are already thinking that I'm confident and they're already thinking that I'm whatever, then I might as well just like pretend that I am and be a little bit more in alignment with that. And it's true when you just like when I go into like a social scenario, especially one where I'm like by myself and I don't really know anyone, um I will have like a moment of just being of like choosing my energy. I'm just like, I'm gonna come
Yes,
in
me
there.
too.
Yeah. And I'm gonna be bright and happy, and I'm gonna be really friendly. And
Mhm.
um, but it is like a conscious practice. It's not like I'm like that all the time, you know?
Totally, totally.
Yeah.
And I think, because I do the same thing, and I also will have moments when I'm, like, in a social situation where I'll remind myself to, like, be, like, warm and inviting.
Like to
Because
like
I
crank it back up. Yeah.
Yeah, because I'll say, because one thing that's really important to me and has been on my morning routine, like, affirmations of, like, something I've wanted to embody for, like, years, it's actually not anymore, but it was for years, was to like, work on creating an energy that made other people feel safe so that they could
Mm-hmm.
feel safe and vulnerable with me. Because those are my favorite kind of interactions, is, like, when we just, like,
Mm-hmm.
get right to it. Like, that's like you and me when we first met. It was not there, like,
Totally.
have we ever had a conversation that's, like, not intense? I don't know, but that's why I
I
love you.
maybe not.
I mean, I know that, like, I don't know, previous partners I've had has been like, "Wow, your brain too mu is a lot." There's, like, a lot. I'm like, "What do you think it's like to be me? It's a lot."
Right. It's
Um,
exhausting.
it's exhausting, okay? I mean, I remember just distinctly, like, I was just thinking saying something to a partner of mine. I was just thinking, like, blah, 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 and, like, just kinda rattling off, like, what was top of mind for me at that moment, and them looking at me and being like, "Holy shit." Like, "That's
That's
what
like
you're
going
thinking about
on.
right now?"
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
like, "Yes." So, anyway, so choosing to be not in my own head, also to be present. Like, for me, a big part of what helps me in those situations is to, like, actually think about my breathing. Like, I will literally do
Mm.
that and be like, I'm just gonna take a, like, breath. I'm gonna notice something that's, like, here. Because if I can, what makes me, like, socially awkward and weird is when I get, like, real into my head and feel real guarded and protected. And so it's, like, sometimes, like, a practice of just kind of, like, reminding my body that, I'm safe,
Mm.
um, has done wonders for me. But also, I think something that's really important is there are people that you don't feel safe with, and you don't, like, necessarily, I don't know, for me, part of, like, what's helped my confidence is spending less time with those people. Because it's like that's actually,
Yeah.
I think, something that really causes a warped self-perception is when you're around, like, really judgmental people, or because when you're around, what I've noticed for me, when I'm around people who are, like, judgy, or, like, a part of, like, what they enjoy is, like, kind of talking shit about people, I ultimately
Mhm.
feel, like, not safe in front of those people because of,
Sure,
like, the
yeah.
judgments that I hear them projecting, because we assume, even subconsciously, that they're, like, um, doing that towards me, even though that's not what I'm
Right.
necessarily, like, thinking about, but it just, like, inherently makes you feel less safe with those people.
Mhm.
And so the more I've kind of just, like, been careful about who I spend my time and energy with. I feel like that's actually been one of the best um factors in growing my own like genuine confidence, because
Mm,
I think that those people like leave a lasting like ding on you even when it's not like them directly talking about you. That's something I've kind of
interesting.
been
Yeah.
thinking about a lot lately because I just
Yeah.
think I'm noticing it more on like real subtle like levels when I'm like, oh, I'm because you hide parts of yourself in the presence of those people, right? Because you know that
Yeah,
they're
you're not
tend
safe
to
to
tend
be
to
vulnerable
judgmental.
around. Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
And that I don't know. So that's like a something that I think has been a huge factor in actually growing my self confidence. In like a
Mhm.
genuine way is just being around people who are kind.
Yeah. I think another element that has helped me step in more of like a confident energy is when you have a subconscious perception that like you're in a room, say you're at like a party and you're in a room and I feel like I can sometimes make just like a subconscious evaluation that everybody else here is super
Mhm.
confident and having a great time, and I'm the big weirdo that like is like, a hot mess, right? And we
Mhm.
have this like really inflated like divide that we create between us and them, and that's not
100%.
true, right? That's not true, but I think that's typically like a subconscious assumption that I make. And so when I can consciously remind myself that chances are everybody feels conflicted like I feel conflicted, and we're all kind of in the same boat together. There are definitely people here that kind of had a bad day and aren't feeling their best self. There are people here that
Mhm.
maybe are having social anxiety. There are other people here that are really stepping into confidence and trying to really like put that part of them forward and really efforting with that energy. And
Mhm.
when I can like make everybody human instead of everybody else is perfect and I'm a fuck up, right?
Mhm.
Like why are we so mean to ourselves? And when I'm just like everybody's human, we're all I feel like everybody in this room can probably identify with some of the anxiety that I'm experiencing now. It makes it so much easier for me to walk up to somebody I don't know and say hi and introduce myself and talk to them, because I'm like we're kind of the same in a lot of
Mhm.
respects, and just like
In
I'm not
so many
like
respects. Yeah.
yeah, and of course there are people, yeah, that are judgy and that do these other things, but I think like on a core level, we all just want to feel safe. We all want to feel like accepted,
Mhm.
and then so when I can shift into the mode of being like you were saying, being a safe place, being a person that can offer that accepting like energy and that loving energy, it really helps me kind of like engage, I think, a lot more confidently. And I do. So I have a question. Do you
Mhm.
have like somebody, like like a confidence, like inspiration? Do you have like a person that when you think of confidence, or you think of going into a social scenario that you would kind of like want to emulate their energy? Is there anybody that comes to mind?
Oh my gosh, it's not confidence, but it's the way that they connect with people, and it's
Uh
totally
huh.
my cousin Ian, actually. That's
Yeah.
so funny that you asked that. And it's not something I think about often, but sometimes because every time I interact with him, he's so good at being present and like genuinely connecting with people. And for me,
Mm-hmm.
that's what I'm like, oh man, Ian, you're such a legend. Like I just adore him.
Mm.
And I think and I
Mhm.
always walk away interacting with him feeling like we genuinely connected. And I've realized that it's him. Like he just like creates that. Um yeah, that's such a good
I love
question.
that. So
Who's
you
yours? But
well,
for me
I'll
it's
tell
not
you,
like
yeah.
necessarily confidence. It's like I mean, yeah, I feel like he comes across as a confident dude, but I also feel like I don't know. I just
It's the
he's
energy
family.
he
So it's like
embodies. Yeah.
I'm sure, yes. But I think more than anything, what he emulates that I really love is like, when you meet those people where you meet them and that you just feel like you genuinely connect with them and that they're really
And you
present with
felt
you.
seen. You, like, felt seen by them.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
And that
yeah.
that is what I try to emulate. Cause I think also when I like try to make that the focus of my like interactions with people, it also I think reduces um stress for me whenever I can make it not about me and about them. I mean, like, that for me is the game changer. That's literally, like, how I, like, built my business. Because I'm like, if I
Hmm.
just am like, "It's not about me," or, like, my YouTube channel. Listen, creating YouTube fucking videos is, like, one of the biggest things I've ever overcome in my life. And
Yeah,
that sounds lame
yes.
as hell, but it is, like, because the amount of confidence that had to come, like, I just it is I love the videos of me when I first started out because I am so fucking awkward. And if you need a confidence boost, just go dig through my awkward ass YouTube
Oh my
channel,
god, I
okay?
love that.
I have so much empathy for that version of myself. I actually think she's real
Mm.
cute cuz so I'm like, "Hi.
Oh, totally. Yeah.
I I'm Sarah Turner and today we are going I'm going and
I
it's just
love
like so
it.
awkward, but the only thing that kept me like showing up and continuing to do that thing is reminding myself that it's not about me and that it's like like genuinely helping people, which is why
Mm.
listen, it's all good like wonderful and all I don't know, all the self-help gurus are like you don't need external validation. Like, get to a place where you're so deeply in love with yourself and feeling so confident that you don't need any approval from others. I'm like, cool, that's great. But, like, fuck that to some extent,
Right.
because without a little
Sure.
bit of external validation saying, hey, your YouTube videos like genuinely helped me, I would not keep creating them because it is not something that
Right.
brings me joy. Like, I am
Right,
not
right.
inherently like trying, like, being the
I
center
love
of
YouTube. Yeah.
attention is
Yeah.
like, is not my thing. I am not an
Mhm.
actress. I would never want to be famous. Like, I literally create it because I want to help people. And if I didn't have some feedback, like you're actually helping me, I would fucking stop. Like, so
Right.
anyway, the for me, whenever I can make it about other people, connecting with other people, um, like, that's really what I wanna emulate. That's the
Yeah.
part that I'm, like, striving for, because that's what feels good
Mhm.
for me. So, anyway, that was a really
Right.
good question, and at first when you were asking it, because you said it with through the lens like, you said confidence, I was like,
Mhm.
There isn't anyone." But when I, like, I don't know, I guess added my own spin to it, I was like, "Oh, I know
Yeah.
who." Anyway,
I
that was a
love
good
that,
question.
and I think the reason why, like, to have, I don't know, these, like, energy, like, examples, like, people who show up in
Mhm.
certain what, and you can apply that to literally anything, and you may have
Mhm.
somebody that inspires you that way, and and I my reflections of, like, on everything that you just said, I think it's, like, so interesting and amazing because you've been on the receiving end of your cousin Ian's energy and it felt really good to you, right? And
Yeah,
so then
yeah.
you were able to embody that energy because you know that that might help somebody else feel really good, and that's like the
Mhm.
underlying current of, like, why you show up, that you want to lift people up, you want people to, like, leave the conversation feeling better than when they started the conversation with
Yeah,
you.
totally.
Yeah,
Totally, totally.
I love
Wait, I
it.
feel like if you ask that question, you have a person.
I do. It's my
Who's your
dad.
person?
It's my
Oh, that's
dad.
amazing. Oh, tell me
Yeah. Eh,
more.
so my father, I love him so much, and he has got the most like, magnetic, contagious, big energy. Like, when he enters the room, he's, like, really loud and super, like, dramatic with his body language. My dad actually grew up with 2 deaf parents, and so he
Mhm.
had to learn how to express himself via like body language and facial expressions, and so he's like so animated, and it's really really like captivating to listen to him tell a story. And so a lot of my, even my body language and my expressive hands and all the things that I do, it's learned from my dad, you know. And
Yeah, yeah.
but like I always like kind of grew up watching my dad enter literally any space and being friends
Mhm.
with everybody instantly. Like just
Mhm.
like best friends with everybody. And that was like the norm. That's just like how my
Mhm.
dad was, and everybody knew my dad. I remember actually like experiencing some jealousy or whatever. Like I want to talk to my dad. Like I want to hang out with my dad, you know?
And he's
And
always, like,
everybody's
talking to
like,
people?
yeah, he's just got
Whoa.
all the friends. But I just,
Yeah.
yeah, like just like even just recently my dad, I was visiting and we went to the grocery store, me and my dad, and we were checking out, and I'm just like keeping my energy to myself, right? I'm just like I have
Mhm.
no need to step into any kind of confidence or friendliness or anything. I'm
Yeah,
just
you're in
picking
the
up a few
grocery store.
groceries and
Yeah.
leaving. Not
Mhm.
my dad. You know, my dad is like best friend mode in the grocery store. And so we're like checking out.
Listen.
We're checking out, and he is just chatting it up with like the older gentleman who's checking us out, and they are dying laughing about, and they, my dad found like a point of connection. Any, it can, and it could be anything, but he finds a point of
Mhm.
connection, goes there, this guy's smiling and laughing, and my dad's laughing, they're having a great time. And then this guy grabs like a lollipop and he hands
Mhm.
me this lollipop. He's like, "Here you go, sweetheart." And I'm like, this is what happens when you're just friendly with everybody. You get presents like and lollipops. And I remember just like having this moment of being like, wow, my dad, like there was no, he didn't have to do that. He didn't have to
Mhm.
spend his energy that way. But by him showing up like that, this man just had a whole like infusion of joy into his probably really monotonous,
Yeah.
boring day, and felt
Yes.
seen and loved and connected to by just these random strangers. And then I had a lollipop, and it like you
Yeah.
know, it was circled back where he wanted to offer, like he wanted to give something back. And I just was like kind of like blown away by that whole like little experience. And I'm like, I could do that. I could move through the world like that if I wanted, like a ray of fucking sunshine, leaving like sparkling flowers and everything everywhere I go. And it just was like really inspiring. So my dad is the person, and when I'm like get in my car and getting ready to go into the party or whatever, it's my dad that I'm like,
Mhm.
okay, I'm
Mhm.
embodying Jeff Krajna. I'm getting into it, and here we go, you know? And I love that. And I love that I have like such a close example of that kind of energy that I want to
Yeah.
emulate. Yeah.
Yes, I love that. It's funny because actually my mom is the same, is the similar, like never
Mm,
meets a
hmm.
stranger. And as a kid, I actually used to get frustrated too because I was like, oh my gosh, everywhere we
I want to go
go, like you
home.
have to talk
Yeah.
to everyone. Like, can we just like get like where we're going and like do the thing we're
Hmm.
trying to do? And it's funny because as I've gotten older, I could add her to this list too. I definitely try to embody more of her in the way that
Hmm.
she literally never meets a stranger. Like to the point where like at Thanksgiving every year there are people there who are like, who is this person? And she's like, it's like the
Hmm.
butcher from Whole Foods. And we're like, what? Or
I
it's
love
like,
it.
it's just like constant. That's why she did the Valentine's Day party. It was like a chance to invite like literally all the people that she's connected with, which is literally everyone. I mean, the stories this woman has of the people she's connected with are insane. Like, 'cause she'll call me and be like,
Mm.
"Oh, I met, um, oh shoot, I forget his name. Dan Rathers? Is he like a?
That
I
sounds
don't
like
know.
somebody.
I'm like, isn't he? I don't know. She'll just like be. I'm pretty sure it's like. I think that's the guy. She like met him and was just like walked right up. I don't know, and right walked right up to him. Was like, "You look like Dan Rathers," and he was like, "I am Dan Rathers." And now they're like best friends, and I'm just like, "If
I
only you,
love it.
woman." Like,
Mm.
yes, that's such a good way. And you're. I love the point that you made about how it made just like something mundane, like the grocery store, like an absolute delight. You
Hmm.
know? when you move,
It
I
did.
really just, it all comes down to the fact that we all crave and want connection.
Mhm.
And when you have the energy for it and you're moving through the world, like connecting with people, even at like random points in your day, it just makes things so much more enjoyable. Like,
Yeah, and I find that it doesn't actually there's like I think there's a way to do it that where it's not draining. It actually like
mm-hmm,
energizes because you're getting like
mm-hmm,
this feedback. Obviously, if you were like pouring that energy out into like the void, it would be draining. But like when you're pouring it into people and then they respond back with like a smile or some
mm-hmm,
joyful energy, you're getting it kind of energizes and charges you up,
mm-hmm.
which I really like. And so I okay, I have this interesting thought and it's kind of a triggering thought or
Oh,
sentence that I'm about to say. I
oh,
think it
oh,
was triggering for
okay.
me. And it's something that I believe my mother said to me and my sisters because we were talking about I think it was the topic of like shyness and that we're feeling really shy. And that the word shy is a word that people identify with. A lot of times
Mm-hmm,
people can put that label on them like, oh, I'm just a shy person. This is part of my character. This is like my personality type. And
mm-hmm.
my mom had a completely different perception on shyness. And what she said was shyness is being selfish and not sharing yourself
Aw,
with the world. Yeah. And I remember being like, because there can be a trigger response like, oh no, fuck that. Like shy. I'm not being selfish. Like I'm having
yeah.
anxiety and I can't, there's distinctions to be made, like, because you don't owe anybody anything and you don't have to share yourself if you don't want to. But that thought of like, changing your perception for like thinking about your energy as like a gift that you are offering to the world. You are offering the
Yeah.
gift of your energy, of your conversation, of your joy, of your intentionality and your personal presence. It's a gift that
Mhm.
you are offering to whoever you're around. And
Mhm.
when you are experiencing so much anxiety or fear or whatever the story you're telling yourself that makes you want to be really, really small and keep all that in, it is like that is something that the world doesn't get to experience then. I do think that there are times that that is necessary, especially for healing. Like, I think it's really, really important to bring all your energy back in to heal sometimes and to like kind of
Mhm.
recover if you're going through stuff. And then I think there's just times like there are times I'm like I really just like don't want to. Like I don't want to
Oh,
share
for
my
sure.
energy and
There are
I'm going to
times where
and
I choose in a
yeah.
standoffish energy. I'm like, I choose like no one talk to me energy. For
Yeah.
sure. Like,
Totally. Totally. And but I like the idea. I think yeah, talking about shyness being selfish is a little bit of like a triggering way to put it, but I like the positive like the positive other side of the coin would be giving like offering yourself and your energy is a gift, right?
mhm.
and
Mhm.
and seeing it and like almost valuing yourself in that way so that when you are showing up and when you are stepping out of your comfort zone maybe into like more of a confident energy that is like a gift. And I like that. Like I
Mhm.
like kind of that way of thinking. And
Mhm.
yeah, I don't know,
Yeah.
do you have any thoughts
I
about
think
that?
yeah, I think saying shyness is selfish is like, for me it reminds me of like kind of like a, some of the mind tricks that I use on myself to like get through
Okay.
things, kind of like, you know, we've talked about it before where I used to really try and like, and almost like when I was younger, in almost like a codependent way. And I don't think it was like natural for me. I think it was more like learned behavior, but I would try to like manage people's emotions. Really, like I would spend a lot of
Right.
energy managing people's emotions. And for me, what like really changed me was when you said something to the effect of, when you do that, you're saying that you inherently don't trust them to like make good decisions for themselves, and that's like, it's kind of unkind or even like condescending to think that you know better, and that you're not, like, you didn't say those
Mhm.
words, but that was like the sentiment. And to
Yeah.
the, and to like, and for me, that was like the mind fuck that I needed to stop doing
Mm.
that, because I was
Mhm.
like, oh, I it is like a form of, I guess, subtle manipulation. It really like was not like with like any, there was no, it was actually like really like well intentioned, but it
Right.
wasn't when it was phrased to me in that way, it was not, I realized, oh wow, that's like really not what I'm trying to do. And for me,
Mhm.
like that shift feels very similar to saying something like shyness is selfish, because I think for some people that's a helpful thought, and for some
Mhm.
people that's like an unhelpful thought. And
Sure.
that's what it reminds me of. Like I think that for some people they'll be like, "Oh, this will help me be less shy, which is what I want to be." And that's great. And for some people they're going to be like, "Well, fuck that. Don't tell me that
Fuck
I have
that.
to like give away all my energy to all these
Yeah.
crazy energy vampires." And like that's also true. So I think it's like one of
That's
those,
fine. Yeah.
it's a belief in can form that you get to choose if you want to put it on your shelf or if
If
you
that
want
works for
to
you.
throw
Yeah.
it away.
I love that.
So,
I appreciate you kind of like encapsulating it that way because yeah, because like for me that like that worked in a way. That was like and it you could take it very negatively and like shame yourself, and that's not what I'm talking about here.
right, right,
I'm more
right.
talking
Exactly.
right like
And I
I'm
knew that's
talking
not what you
about
meant. Mhm.
yeah, like w- to get really clear, like when if you're in a situation where you're like so overcome with fear that you feel so small, or you are overthinking things and having to manage emotions and being really really like frayed out in trying to like, is everybody okay, is everybody okay, like those energies I feel like are net, like they're like negative energies. They're like we're not in a positive here. We're not adding like
Mhm.
you know, like a higher level of like connection to a situation. It's kind of it's a smaller, more concave, draining energy. And
Mm.
versus like giving, trusting, like these things, those can be bigger energies. And then there are distinctions, like we said, like times that we have consciously chosen to be withdrawn. When for me, when that's conscious, it doesn't feel small. It feels
Mm.
intentional. It feels like this is
Totally.
important to me right now, and I'm actually gonna, no, I don't really want to interact. I kind of want to like be
Yeah.
in the corner by myself. But it's
Yep.
that is also like a bigger important energy. It's not this like black hole small energy. It's intentional.
Yes.
So
This
and
is the
yeah,
key. Is
yeah.
like
So
I love that you're
being
going
aware,
that down
yeah.
this path. Is it and
Mhm.
it comes back to that question you love to ask that I think is so wonderful, where it's like, does it make me feel big or small? Because when it makes you
Mhm.
feel small and you're being shy from a place of like, I don't know, making yourself smaller, like that's not good. But when you're intentionally like reserving your energy for whatever reason as a protective mechanism, and it makes you feel like bigger and stronger and safer, like that's wonderful.
Mhm.
It's fine. Yeah.
Yeah. Yes, and honestly, you can literally like you can apply that philosophy to any energy, because there's definitely people who have been in this big extroverted, we even talked about it in a recent episode where you mentioned like this like party girl archetype, and how
Mhm.
ultimately that probably was like more of a negative expression because it was so exhausting for you to project this thing that you felt like you were expected to be. And that
Mhm.
wasn't exact, that wasn't like good and enriching, you know. It was like, oh,
Mm-mm.
I actually am not being seen at all. So like getting clear on like the origins of, yeah, your energies.
Yeah. And that actually, I'm glad you brought that up, because I think there's an important distinction to be made here around like putting on an act and choosing an energy. Because the party
Ooh,
girl
okay.
thing, yeah, because I was noticing that, but I was like, while we were talking actually, because I was like, without this distinction, actually like choosing an energy and choosing to like create a safe place, like what we were talking about before, where I was like, I try to create a safe place so I can connect with people better and they feel safe and we can
Hmm.
get more vulnerable and like get to a place where it feels better for me as a conversation because it's not surface level, things like that. That's choosing for me. That's like that's choosing an energy rather than pretending. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Whereas like
Yeah.
party girl, what you were referring to when I was like party girl, playing out the party girl archetype. Um, I mean, I'm sure there were some times where it was me choosing an energy and it actually felt like true and good and fun, like for sure. But where it became problematic was when it was an act and it was something I was just doing because it was expected of me. So there is a
Mm-hmm.
distinction I think to be made here between like choosing a confident energy and putting on an act. But also I do think that sometimes at the end of the day, putting on like to put on an act in some situations to kind of get you through it or like to fake
Necessary.
it
A
until you make
skill.
it
It's a
is
skill
like
to have. Yes.
it can be okay. It can be a good thing.
Yes.
I think where the problem is when it's like it's always an act, right? Or it's
Mm.
more often an act than not. But there have definitely been scenarios where I'm like, okay, I'm gonna like pull out this I'm gonna pull out this like act so that I can get through this moment. You know what I mean? And
Yeah,
the best way I
100%.
know how. And like that's okay too. That's where we have to have grace for
Yeah.
ourselves. But
Totally. Totally.
anyway, yeah, for
So
sure.
I okay. I fucking love this conversation. So I have this other thought.
Hmm.
Um and it kind of goes along with what you're saying, that because we've kind of, I think, identified that confidence is an energy to exude and inhabit and kind of like
And it's a part of you.
enter
I think
into.
we all have
It's
parts of us that are
authentic.
confident.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's not and it's an authentic expression of a part
Hmm.
of you. Yeah. And
Hmm.
so, but I think like a lot of times, maybe I feel like I can make an assumption that confidence is like action, as opposed to
Hmm.
confidence being an energy. And like
Hmm.
confidence is, oh, loud, super talkative, like, and a lot of times it is that, but I think it's the energy behind the actions and it's not the actions themselves. And I have a little like a little story illustration. um
Okay.
that I've done like energy experiments, because that I'm weird like that. This is like I've done like little weird experiments like my whole life.
Not
Like the one,
surprised at
the
all.
walking down the hallway experiment and not stepping aside for men experiment. That one was
Yes.
funny, that I talked about last time. Anyway, this experiment was also, grocery stores are like a great like testing zone apparently. So I I remember I was exuding an energy that was kind of like anxious and feeling really like down on myself and like self-loathing and all this stuff. I remember I was like in a grocery store and I remember noticing I was literally repelling people away from me. Like I had like this magnetic field that was just pushing people away from me, like physically, because
Hmm.
I had such like this like dark cloud of energy. And it happened like enough, like me pulling my cart and people like moving aside or avoiding eye contact. It was really interesting to me, and I was like, I am like exuding some like really like negative energy right now, and people are responding subconsciously. And so I remember like trying to practice the alternative. And I
Mm.
remember like consciously going into the grocery store and
Mhm.
deciding that I was going to have like like sparkly energy, and that I
Mhm.
was going to feel lovey, joyful, sparkly energy. And what literally was happening, and this wasn't me doing anything, it wasn't me having any actions, I wasn't going out of my way to talk to people, I wasn't doing that, I was just trying to sparkle, right? And
Mhm.
what happened was deep eye contact, people smiling at me, people trying to
Mhm.
talk to me and asking, people commenting about the sweatshirt I'm wearing. There was even, I
Yeah.
remember there was like one point, there was a guy, he was like, he started talking to me about the chips. I was standing in the chips, and then he's like, at the end of the conversation, he's like, "Okay, I'm just gonna do it," and he gives me his phone number. I'm like, oh, "What is happening?" And it was because I was exuding this like sparkly, joyful, confident, whatever energy, but it was pure just energy. I wasn't acting on it, and people were like
Yeah.
magnetized to me, and so
I've d
I was like, "There's like a super. This is like a superpower," you know?
Yep. Yes. No, totally. I've definitely put out I need to get laid energy and it works.
Totally. Oh, yeah. The fuck me
You're like,
energy? Yes,
fuck me
yes.
energy. Oh yeah. Like I've definitely had nights where I'm like, actively like putting on the fuck me energy, and it works like a charm. It's like all of a
It
sudden,
does.
oh man, that's
Just
so funny.
magnetize. But I think I don't know, we don't, like, talk about that a ton, like, how powerful that
Mm-mm.
is, how
It's
powerful your
so
state of
powerful.
mind and state of being is, and you can be
Yes.
intention just like your little 6th grade self realized how much control you actually had over how you
It's
show up in the
so
world.
true. It's so true. I have to circle back though and say that you associate confidence with action, cuz I actually associate confidence with the need to not take action, because the
Oh,
most
interesting.
genuinely confident person I know 100% is my dad. And he like and what I have like learned over the years through like observing him is when you like the truly most confident people in this world do not feel a need to react or act, um
Mm.
or control or like adjust situations, and that comes from a place of like profound confidence.
You are
Like
so right. Yes.
he like, in fact, I literally have a little mantra that I say to myself sometimes, and it's like either not responding or not acting is a flex. Cuz I have to
Mm,
remind
mm.
myself sometimes, like when people, especially like this is especially true with like people who send me crazy emails, people who say crazy things in comments online. I literally say to myself, not responding is a flex, because
Yeah.
it's not what I want to do innately. And
Right.
I literally like think of my dad, and I'm like, that man is so confident, and the way that you know it is because he literally is never trying to prove himself to anyone. Like almost to a point
Mm.
that like as a kid I would be like, "Come on, dad, defend yourself." You know?
Mm.
And he was just like
Wow, yeah.
does not need to. So for me, he is like the genuinely most confident human I have ever met, and the most humble human I have ever met. And
Mm.
it's actually like for me feels like unattainable. Like I am far too,
Impossible.
I'm like that, I don't even know if I want to get to that level. You know what I mean? Where I'm just like letting the world just like like the
Just
chaos
unfazed.
ensue, unfazed.
Yeah.
I'm like, I am not that. And nor do I like think I want to be on that level. But it's very impressive, and something that has definitely played a role in what um confidence really looks like. Um
Mm.
I actually remember
I'm so
being
glad you brought this up, yeah.
I actually remember being at a party where there was with my dad, and there was a man there who was the host of the party, and he definitely comes across as confident and arrogant and loud and takes action, and he's like a very like stereotypical traditional masculine southern man.
Like, okay, okay.
um and I remember like standing next to my dad and observing him and having a very distinct moment in time where I was like, that's not genuine confidence. And I
Ah,
looked at my
yeah.
dad and I said to him, and I said, Dad, I just have to say in this moment, because it was like actively like this display of like macho confidence was occurring in front of our eyes. And I looked at him and I go, Dad, thank you for teaching me that confidence actually looks a lot like humility. And he
Mm.
laughed so hard because it was like a knowing laugh. Like he knew exactly what
Uh-huh.
I was observing to like create that sentiment within me. And I like my dad laughed so hard. And it was we had this whole moment where we like cried laughed at like me just saying that one little thing, because he was just like,
That's amazing.
and it was such a moment in time for me where I was like, that what that man is doing is not genuine confidence. Like, anyway.
Yes. That is such a good point to make, because probably what's underneath that, like, pretending, or that overexerting energy is probably a
Mhm.
whole ton of insecurity, and there's like a
Mhm.
compensation that's happening there. And actually, like, I mean, I feel like I could pick that energy out like a mile away. It's very abrasive, like it could be
Totally.
very, very abrasive. I'm so glad you made all this distinction, because you were so right. There's this quiet, calm, unfazed,
Mhm.
kind of really sure, really like just a huge capacity for just like being this like stillness in the midst of a storm. And you're so
Mhm.
right that that is like, I think, a really pure expression of like confidence and being really grounded in who you are and who you
And
believe
I
you are.
think
Yeah.
and I think that what comes as a result of that is just like deep and profound respect. Like everyone who knows my
Mm.
dad has so much respect for that man because of this. And I think the other thing that's like, and I guess an important like distinction of his energy versus a lot of others is he does not try to control situations at all. Like at
Mm.
all. He does his part, like he's not passive, but he's definitely like not controlling. And I think that that's also comes from a place of confidence, right? I think when we try to control, even when it's like, again, not like you're not necessarily a controlling person, but we all to some extent try to control situations to get like our desired outcome or to feel
Mhm.
safe. I mean,
Mhm. Yeah.
and not trying to control or manipulate or like a situation, I think is like such a sign of like deep confidence, which really is rooted in self trust, I think.
Yes.
Because
Yes.
when you trust yourself to kind of be able to deal with anything that comes your way, which is, I think, really what is like happens for my dad. That's like where confident, like true confidence comes from, is
Yes.
a deep sense of self trust. Yeah.
Mhm. Mhm. Oh, I love that. I
Hmm.
love that you distilled it all the way down to that. That's like, that really resonates with me in such a big way. It's so true.
Yeah.
The whole like, yeah, I don't actually have anything to prove. I don't have to manage the situation in any way. And
Hmm.
but it's also not like I'm not it's not passivity, it's not
Uh-uh.
avoidance.
And it's
It's
also
very,
not
very
taking
present. Yeah.
Mhm. And it's also not taking on other people's emotions. Like he definitely has strong
Mm.
internal boundaries cuz he's I've just seen him witness like I don't know, me us as children like flail and have temper tantrums and be like a disaster and he just like doesn't take it on. Which is also I
Mm.
think a big part of what grows self-confidence and our self-trust and confidence is having strong boundaries so that you're not taking on somebody else's like um internal state or taking it
Mm.
personally really.
Mhm.
And I mean you can still he's a deeply empathetic person, holy shit. So it's not like it's not a lack of empathy, it's being empathetic
Mm.
but also like seeing that it's not yours to take on, which is a really like nuanced um just way of interacting with people.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah.
I love it. Well, we love our dads. Go dads.
Yeah, and our moms. Yeah.
And our moms. We love them.
Yeah.
Yeah,
We do.
I love this conversation so much. I actually feel like I've learned a lot. I feel like we were able to like articulate things that I don't think I've ever really like
I would say like
articulated, you know?
90% of this conversation was the first time I've articulated any of that, actually, which
Yeah.
really is like my favorite kind of conversations. And one of the reasons I
Mm,
love this podcast is because it's so much of that has like rolled around in my brain, but hasn't been like laid out like that, which just makes it so much more solid for me.
mm, mhm.
As like conceptually, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, that was fun.
I
Woo.
love it. Yeah, that was super fun.
It's so funny because I didn't
Woo!
really want to do this topic. I should know better
I
by now. Whenever there's a topic I don't really want to do, it usually ends up being one of the better ones for
Were
me.
you like
Uh
discovering stuff? Yeah.
yeah, because I think when I don't want to do a topic it's because I don't like the way that I feel like it's being talked about maybe. And
Mm,
that's
by
how I
other
feel about
people?
confidence. Yeah, because I'm
Yeah.
like, I don't know that I don't consider myself a confident person. I mean, I do now, actually. I feel, but again, I think it's more like because I have the greatest sense of self trust I've ever had in my life right now. You know what I
Mm,
mean? So
mhm,
that's what I mean when
mhm.
I say I now feel confident. But when people say confidence, it just brings up for me when people are like, "Oh, you're so confident," and I like, how can yeah, and I'm like, I don't have any authority on this subject. I don't know how to
Right.
talk about confidence because it's like really
Mhm.
messy in here.
Yeah.
But
It's just a
anyway,
hot mess.
it's just a
Yeah.
mess. But
Yes.
yeah, I'm glad we did that. Thanks for making it happen.
Yeah. Thanks for showing up.
Thanks for making it happen. Ooh, that was good.
Yeah. That was so good.
Um, well, until next time, it didn't feel like a second topic came out of that one, so who knows what's to
No,
come
this is like, oh,
next. We'll
yeah,
see.
this is going to be a
Oh.
surprise. Okay, now it's time for our
Meow.
high pitched voices. I love
This
you
is where we talk like
so
mice and we say I love you because we don't know how to end a
much.
podcast. Okay,
Awkwardly ending our
bye.
podcast.
Moonwalk.
Moonwalk out of the podcast.